Hetepu, I have found the secret to getting black people out of poverty and out of oppression. And if you want to hear about it, stay tuned. Hetepu, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Haru Nefer. This is Qesankh with another exciting video for you. And in this video, we're going to talk about the polychronic cultures versus the monochronic cultures. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. If this is your first time to my channel, hit the subscribe bell to get notifications on when I go live and when I upload recorded video. If you want to know more about my teachings, you can become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1, $5, or $20 per month. It's up to you. There's no obligation and you can cancel at any time. As a supporter, you'll get exclusive access to instructional videos and articles that deal with the spiritual and the esoteric. As a member, you will learn things like communicating with the ancestors, how do you conduct a ritual, proper breathing exercises, how to properly meditate, and so much more. Also, for those of you who want to take the next step, if you are confused in life and you need guidance, you can get an oracle reading. And I do readings using the three oracles, the Great Oracle of Tahuti or the Meduniter Oracle, the ancient I-ching Oracle, and of course the Tarot Oracle. And to give you an idea what that's like, take a look at this.
I see it right here. Your finances will improve in the next 2 months.
Really? That's great. Tell me more, please.
All right, so you can sign up for your oracle reading by rolling or scrolling down below to the description box and clicking on the link. Now, last but not least, share this video with family and friends so that we can get this revolution started. So, Haru Nefer, Namaste, Grand Rising. I know I made a bold claim earlier in the broadcast when I talked about that I have the secret to getting black people out of the current plight that they're in now. So I'm going to get right into that and follow me now because it can get a bit deep now. Now I know we've talked about a lot of historical figures who have really pushed us and guided us along the way, you know, like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Marcus Garvey, Elijah Muhammad, and just many, many more. But the crux of the situation is I've always wondered, you know, like when we start to look at our plight here in North America, and especially too in Africa, we start to see something in common, that throughout the decades there has been very little progress. Now, I don't mean progress in terms of civil rights or human rights, but I mean in terms of building us up to be economic powerhouses, to working on the black infrastructure so that we do have businesses and a thriving economy. And that is the one thing that I took notice about what was lacking in the black community in general, is that we don't have businesses, you know, we don't have factories, you know, we're not captains of industry. So there's a real serious issue when it comes to that. Meanwhile, when we look at other countries, we can see, like, especially when we look at Europe, there's very, very thriving industries in Europe. Here in the USA, there's international trade. big businesses. But why have black people not been able to create businesses on par with white people? So is the black man and woman deficient in some area? And it took a lot of deep diving for me to understand this. And I'm going to give you an example of my journey, so that you clearly understand what the problem is. Because I don't think that we have diagnosed the situation properly when it comes to black people here in this country. And consequently, because we have not diagnosed the problem, we don't know what the problem is. So we go around bumping our heads against the wall, trying different things, and just not solving anything. Let's take, for example, of this. Louis Farrakhan did his Million Man March to Washington. And in my perspective, he accomplished nothing. It was a waste. You know, it was just about pageantry. It's just about showing off. But there was no agenda. We walked away with no marching orders. So nothing. And that's because there's a real lack of understanding the problem when it comes to the black community. And many of our leaders haven't understood it fully. And I'm going to give you an example. As great as Malcolm X was, and he was a great man, he was deficient in the understanding that Islam was not the right religion for black people. He greatly misunderstood that, miscalculated that. And so do many of black people, FBAs, whatever you want to call them, ADOS, Freedmen. We jump from religion to religion as if it's going to solve our problems. Some people get into Christianity and all of a sudden they think they're better than everybody else. A lot of us get into Islam is because Islam is a religion of color. We think we're better than Christians and everybody else. But these religions are not the solution. Because as you've seen my videos, I talk a lot about that these religions were created by the oligarchy, the ruling elite, to oppress us, to keep us from making progress. And consequently, these religions have been successful in doing that. So when we're looking to get ourselves out of the condition that we're in, it is not going to lie in the lap of these religions. We've seen what they produce over the course of years. We've seen nothing come out of the Nation of Islam. We saw the Garvey movement created nothing lasting. So what is the heart of the problem? What are we missing? Well, as I said, I wanted to tell you kind of like my story. I went to an African temple and I studied there for 12 years. And when I say study, I mean I really studied. I got into the books, I got into the spiritual aspect of it, but I started noticing certain things that were off. Now follow me here. We would not start class on time. Class would always start late. Sometimes the teachers would not show up. We had, in addition to the spiritual school, we had a restaurant and we had a health store. And that's great. But the restaurant and health store never had proper hours to open up. Sometimes you would come and it'd be open, other times it wouldn't be open. The rent was never paid on time, so we were always behind on paying our rent, and a number of times we got evicted. So there were these problems that kept cropping up year after year after year. We never had enough money to do things. We never developed a real business solution. Meanwhile, when I looked at other religions, they had started all types of businesses and they were thriving. So why couldn't we start a business? Why couldn't we pay rent? Why couldn't our restaurants open on time? Because when you were expecting people to support you as a business, no one wants to support a business that doesn't have adequate hours. I remember not long ago, well, actually long ago, the Nation of Islam had a fish store or a fish restaurant on 125th Street in Harlem. And I'm going to tell you, they made the best fish sandwiches you ever tasted. But it was hit or miss. You would show up one day, the store was closed. You show up another day, it was open. You know, I remember even around my block, there was a vegetable stand. And I was walking by one day and I saw this brother standing outside. And I walked up to him because this was the first time I've actually seen that vegetable stand. So I asked him, I said, "Hey, brother, how long have you been here? Because I've never seen, I've never seen you here." He goes, "What do you mean, brother? I've been here for like 10 years. I was like, "Really? How could I miss that?" And I walked away and I knew he was full of shit. Excuse my language. And I showed up a week later and he was closed. Closed for business permanently. I remember going to the Black Enterprise. I forgot what it was called. They would have it every year. It was where black people who were operating businesses would get together to show off their businesses, right? The Black Expo, I think it was called. And every year I went, it was all the same thing, just selling t-shirts or maybe a fashion line. While white people are developing satellites in orbit or probes that would go to Mars and Neptune, we can't get a simple restaurant off the ground. And then when we would try something, it always would seem to fail. I remember going to this one sister on 125th Street. She owned a printing company, and I said I needed these invitations because we're having an event, and I had to have the invitations on such and such a date. Not only was she late, but the invitations were crap. And in fact, when I brought the invitations back to my partners, they chastised me because of how they looked cheap. So what we produce is it's again not on par to what white people are doing. And now I hear this argument about, and I know I digress a bit, about how integration messed us up. That is the stupidest argument I've ever heard. And there's so many ways I can dismantle that. But you have to remember, during segregation, yes, we did have Black Wall Street, we did have businesses, but they were not equal to that of white people. Our businesses were not, they were corner store retail shops. They weren't international trading businesses. The schools lacked books. The books were old, outdated. So don't tell me that integration messed us up. Because what we had, though we did the best we could, still couldn't compete. And to use the name Black Wall Street is a misnomer, because we weren't doing Wall Street trading. We didn't have a Wall Street. You understand? So let us stop fooling ourselves. But again, as I said, I digress. Let me get into the point of this. So I was attending this spiritual organization, and though the spiritual camaraderie was great, the fellowship was great, we were failing in all other areas. Our fundraisers didn't raise funds. Our businesses failed. You know, we would have a restaurant, but because we didn't pay anybody, we didn't have workers. We had volunteers who would show up if they felt like it. The health store lacked product on the shelves. We didn't have money to purchase products in bulk. But now let's get to the real deal here on why black people are failing on a global level. And remember, when I talk about business, I'm talking about international enterprises, fiber optic cables, the Elon Musk type of developing cars that drive themselves, satellites that go into the moon. I'm talking businesses like that. We fail. When I began to study the tree of life, the Porte Neteru, which is a cosmological chart that orders the deities according to an interrelationship and interdependence, I realized something very interesting. That it wasn't just a cosmological roadmap of deities, but it was something far more important. It was a set of faculties and perspectives on how information is processed. Do you understand what I'm saying? How you process information. And if you look closely, for every deity like Harukahuti, Ma'at, Sebek, Sekert, Oser, for every deity there is a way to process information. And this is the basis of how you can tell a civilization operates. Western man operates out of the left brain. So he's segregative in thought process. He seeks to separate, label, define, sees things superficially. African man sees the world through the right brain, synthesis. We look to how things can be brought together to see how they are alike. We're non-linear, whereas the left brain is linear. Now here is the secret I alluded to earlier about why we're in the condition we are in now. You see, yes, we have been oppressed. Our businesses have been attacked and burned down. Rosewood, Black Wall Street. But whereas others have rebuilt their civilization and are thriving, we have not. Yes, we have not received reparative justice, but we can't wait for that. So when we start to build these businesses, which we have attempted, there is infighting amongst us, sabotage amongst us, and a lack of proper operational skills. And the reason for this is because we lack a proper understanding of the difference between a monochronic culture versus a polychronic culture. This is a huge thing to understand. You see, when you look at countries like Japan, Germany, who have suffered atrocities, yet were able to come back to spring back from that and to excel. Africa, which has gone through, yes, a colonization, an invasion, a takeover and rape of its natural resources, but we cannot always keep going back to blame white people. Because when you look at many of the countries in Africa, they are run by black statesmen, black leaders. But yet, consequently, when you look at countries like Nigeria, they don't have a proper infrastructure. The roads are all non-existent. Businesses don't operate adequately. And the reason being, the source of the problem we can trace back to the adaptation of a polychronic culture. That is the source and the heart of the problem. You see, whereas most cultures, and if you study cultures, and you study history, and you study revolutionaries, then you will understand this. But if you just study Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., then you're inadequate to speak on the subject. Most of the cultures that have bounced back and have excelled have adapted a monochronic culture. Now, I'm speaking Martian. Let me give you the definition of the two so you fully understand it. And we as black people actually have a cursory understanding of this, because we often talk about African time versus white people time. And that's actually what we're talking about here. So let's go and take a look at this. So when we talk about the monochronic cultures, view time as linear and compartmentalized, prioritizing schedules, punctuality, and single tasking. Examples are USA and Germany. Conversely, polychronic cultures view time as fluid and flexible, prioritizing relationships and multitasking over strict schedules. Example, Latin America and Africa. Monochronic focuses on task completion. Polychronic focuses on relationships. Key difference, time conception. Monochronic views time as a commodity to be managed. Time is money. While polychronic sees time as flexible and natural cycle. Task handling. Monochronic individuals focus on one task at a time, sequential, whereas polychronic individuals comfortably handle multiple tasks at once. Scheduling deadlines. Monochronic cultures, Japan, Switzerland, have strict schedules and prioritize punctuality. Polychronic cultures view schedules as flexible and subject to change based on relationships. Interpersonal relations. Monochronic prioritizes the job first, often disregarding personal connection to finish work. Polychronic prioritizes people and relationship, often interrupting tasks to build rapport. Examples, monochronic, USA, Germany, Switzerland, and Japan. Polychronic, Latin America, Africa, Mediterranean cultures, Arab nations. Do you see where this is leading? The source of the problem with black people here in North America and some parts of South America and in Africa, the source of the problem lies in the operating as a polychronic culture. As a people of a polychronic culture, we see time as non-linear. We don't prioritize time. There's an African man who talked about he was starting a business in Nigeria and he had set up interviews for 9 a.m. Do you know that all candidates that showed up were at least 15 to 20 minutes late, and they didn't think a big deal about it? He pointed it out, and they called him acting white for pointing that out. You see, most countries that adapt a polychronic system of operation excel. And in many cases, they have quickly bounced back from a war, a genocide, or what have you. Just look at Germany and Japan, for example. They operate based on a monochronic system. And look how their cultures have come back from Hiroshima and the bomb. Germany built itself up to be a world power. But when we look at civilizations of color that operate based on the monochronic culture, in many areas we're lacking in the school system, in business. A lot of the things that we put together and work on are disrupted based on the fact that we value interpersonal relationships ahead of business acumen. We see time as flexible versus the monochronic system, which prioritizes being someplace and producing things on time. And when I looked at that temple I had attended for 12 years, and when I realized that they had took a polychronic system and tried to set that up and operate that here, then I saw the source of the problem. I said that this religion, this spiritual culture that we're trying to set up will not succeed if we are leveraging the same polychronic system that Africa has. In fact, we were taking an African system or spiritual system, exporting it, setting it up here, and the United States works on a monochronic system and thinking that that African religion or system could thrive and be successful here. No, and consequently it wasn't. It failed. And this is the reason why black people are not making progress in this country. This is why we are held back, not by the white man, but of our own mode and method of operation. We have set up for ourselves and operated a polychronic way of doing business. And it cannot succeed. It cannot succeed. And if history is any evidence, we can see that the countries that have the monochronic operating system are successful. And if we want to be successful, we are going to have to change. It is as simple as that. It's as simple as that. And if we don't do something, we're just going to be a hamster in a wheel. And this goes back to what I've always taught in my lessons on this channel. We are right brain people and they are left brain people. And for us to succeed, we have to adapt some of those left brain traits. No doubt about it. And I want to take a moment here to show you something that really brings home the point, so that you have a full understanding of why we're failing. Let's tune into this. Check this out.
African polychronic culture is adverse to development. All developed countries tend to have monochronic cultures, while all underdeveloped countries exhibit polychronic cultures. In this video, I want to explore the concept of African time and how IQ relates to innovation and advanced technology. While it is true that IQ does not measure creativity or emotional intelligence, we must ask, when was the last time emotional intelligence built a skyscraper or invented a new technology? To foster a successful economy and develop a nation, greater emphasis is placed on IQ than on emotional intelligence. In various African countries such as Zambia, Burundi, Togo, and Malawi, perceptions of time are flexible and malleable. Precision in timing is crucial to the smooth functioning of societies. Without it, disruptions are probable. For example, in Nigeria, you can arrive at a public office that officially opens at 8 a.m. only to find that no one is there. If someone is there, they might spend half an hour chatting or socializing and tell you that they don't have the equipment necessary to serve you. This scenario is commonplace across many Black African cultures and nations. In contrast, in the UK, a company can be set up in a matter of 20 minutes with any device with an internet access. However, in Nigeria, the same process requires you to go to that office physically, and the people there would want bribe here, bribe there, and all the delay, socializing, then you go to the next office, bring that form and this form. The disorganization often requires multiple trips to different offices, each operating in a chaotic polychronic manner. Children raised with a polychronic mindset may find it influences nearly every aspect of their activities and interactions. It is a legal requirement for cars to be insured, but in many Black African countries and other polychronic cultures, even if someone lacks insurance, the police often overlook this requirement in exchange for a small bribe. This flexibility in time and rules stems from cultural background that prioritizes adaptability. As a result, this polychronic approach influences various aspects of society, including building regulations, the education system, insurance applications, banking, and other financial services. This mindset permeates societies, affecting everyone from ordinary citizens to those in the highest offices. In this culture, job opportunities are often given to close relatives, friends, or those with connections, as personal relationships takes precedence over established qualifications. The individuals responsible for reviewing and auditing businesses often share this polychronic mindset and a focus on short-term gains, leading them to bend the rules to meet their immediate needs. Many people raised in these environments don't perceive anything wrong with these practices because they are deeply ingrained in their culture. The polychronic culture, and everyone admire the systems in countries like Japan, Switzerland, or Norway, yet they do not realize that these differences are not inherently ingrained in human nature. For example, a person raised in a Western or East Asian culture understands that their car must be insured or that specific documentation is needed to register a company, and that once those conditions are met, registration is guaranteed without bribery. Public offices operate according to a strict schedule starting at 8 a.m. sharp, and leaders have a defined term of office during which they can be voted out for poor performance. In school, if a student performs well, they will receive a grade that accurately reflects their effort and abilities regardless of their background. In contrast, people raised with a polychronic mindset view rules and regulations as malleable rather than fixed, which can lead to a higher susceptibility to bribery and corruption. This difference in mindset also makes it difficult to manipulate elections or other processes in monochronic cultures where adherence to the law is deeply ingrained. The flexibility embedded in those raised in polychronic societies societies often result in a different approach to governance and societal norms. The impact of a polychronic mindset on our cognitive abilities, particularly IQ, is significant. When one believes that everything is flexible, it can hinder their cognitive skills to identify, understand, and predict patterns, relationships, or rules within visuals, numerical, or spatial data, essentially what an IQ test evaluates. This mindset might lead people to overlook crucial indicators, believing that errors can be easily fixed because everything is perceived as malleable. Consequently, the motivation to innovate is strikingly affected, as the notion of squeezing in ideas can lead to failure or inadequate conclusions. A culture of total reliance on flexibility could affect the result or the framework itself. In contrast, people raised in Western monochronic cultures often enjoy an advantage due to their structured upbringing. They see the world in an orderly manner, and their thought processes align with that order. On the other hand, people from African polychronic backgrounds may struggle without a sense of order because order is not naturally ingrained in their thinking. This discrepancy reflects not a genetic deficiency but an epigenetic one, indicating that external influences such as upbringing and culture shape cognitive development. For example, all developed countries, as I said, is monochronic, whilst every polychronic culture is underdeveloped. I say this because even semi-monochronic cultures within Europe tend to exhibit less development and advancement than fully monochronic ones. For example, some part of Italy, Spain, and Greece might remind one of areas in the developing world. In contrast, countries like the UK, Germany, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark have structures that leave no room for polychronic tendencies. Although Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, and other South and Central American countries have white populations, because this country are not as monochronic as Canada, USA, Australia, and New Zealand, you see how they are less developed, even though there isn't anything Canada and Australia can do that Brazil and Mexico cannot.
All right. So I hope that you get the point of what I'm saying. And I want to go back to those definitions that I gave early in the broadcast. Under the category of interpersonal relations, where it says this: polychronic prioritizes people and relationships, often interrupting tasks to build rapport. Many African nations, when they have meetings, the first thing on the meeting is to exchange pleasantries and to get into conversations about how was your day, how was your week, how was your family. And this type of talk, if interrupted by someone coming from a monochronic system and he says, guys, we're running out of time, we should really get down to business. A person or persons like that are quickly dispensed with. Even if they are super qualified for their position. Because a polychronic system values interpersonal relationships over business. In fact, when you look at certain businesses in Africa, if you are related to the business owner, there's a good opportunity for you to get a promotion or get a position, even if you're not qualified. This is why most of these African countries are failing. And yes, I do understand that the dictators are well, the presidents in position, even if they're trying to do the right thing, they have a bureaucracy that is based on kickbacks, corruption, inappropriate uses of money, where money doesn't go to the intended departments to create factories, to create roads, to create housing. To create an infrastructure. All of this because Africa has in place a polychronic system that does not work. It does not work. The people are capable of building a great society. But when the operational structure is based on the wrong paradigm, it doesn't matter if you have good intentions. It's not going to come to fruition. It doesn't matter if we here in the United States have good intentions about liberating ourselves, about creating businesses for our people. We are hindered by an innate need to put in place a polychronic system. And the example of which I gave you of this African religion coming from Africa and setting up shop here and doing business as a polychronic religion failed. And until we learn how to set up and operate a monocratic business, a monocratic culture, we will not succeed. It's as simple as that. We can adapt whatever religion we think will work, but it will ultimately fail because we're not getting to the heart of the matter. And this is the heart of the matter. So I want to thank you for tuning in today. I hope this message resonates with you. If so, please donate to the channel. This is Qesankh Keperu, son of Ma'at and Tahuti. Ma'at is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Until my next video, I'm in Ra.